Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. This is the return of GACHAT, the conversation series between Glurma and I about Grand Arena. He a pay-to-play player and me a free-to-play player. Part 1 of this conversation is over on his channel. There will be a link down below so you can check out that video first before getting into this one if you haven't already seen it. We are behind in putting this video out because of other issues. So this conversation actually took place during the last 5v5 season. So if anything sounds out of place, that's why. But the majority of this conversation is still valid. We do intend this to be a regular series. So we apologize on the delay on this one, but hopefully that was a one-time thing and things will be more smooth moving forward. But on to the conversation.
Hey guys, my name is Glurma and I'm joined again by Still Plays, and we're back with another GACHAT. Alright, so the next thing we're going to be talking about today is going to be upcoming 5v5. You know, how are we both going to prep for it, and what can you guys do to also get ready?
Yeah, I think one of the big lessons is just what the raid is allowing us to do and just shifting. So there's a lot of weaknesses that were within my roster that I've known have been there for years, but you make choices of where to apply your resources. And one of those things for me was like not having full relics on a number of squads, like my Star Killer squad. I finally took Visas to relics because I got that Mara Jade crown that I want to utilize. Trench, I didn't need to. I had him at R7 and I had characters I could pair with him in 3v3. But I needed to bring additional characters up to relics in order to use them in 5v5 for Datacrons. And then it's just all this little prep work now where all the pilots, like I'm starting to bring gear 12 to my pilots and then look at relics in certain circumstances so that I can start incrementally making everything a little bit better, looking for where all my weak points are and trying to address them.
I think that's a really great point, and it's something similar to what I'm doing, because I just took my cow to relic like last week, and I was like, okay, I'll leave him at relic 1. You know, I'm doing other projects. I go into Grand Arena today. I think, oh, I can set Ray with cow today, and I can't do anything. He's not relic 5. I can't even set Datacron. So I get your point. You know, if you want to prepare for 5v5, you want to prepare for 3v3. I think it's good to find the weak spots in your roster and kind of build towards them. Obviously, you don't want to go too crazy. I'm sure you understand this completely. But what you do want to do is maybe pick 1 or 2 teams to get ready for the next 5v5. So for example, for me, it was Wookiees, and I got my Wookiees done and they're ready. And next 3v3 is going to be my Seer team. So I'm going to aim to have Seer, Cow, Fulcrum, and I already have the others done. And then I always do 1 team in preparation, and I think that sounds a bit similar to what you've been doing.
Yeah, I've set up a lot of things. Like, I'll be very interested to see what's going to happen with my Tarful squad, because it's mostly Gear 11 characters, some Gear 12 characters. And in 3v3, they got some wins. They did some interesting things, but it wasn't quite there, especially like Clone Wars Chewie at Gear 11 just does nothing. But in 5v5 with some additional Wookiees around there, I'm going to be pretty interested to see if they have the ability to punch up. And the same with Saw Gerrera. I've got him prepared for that Gear 11 testing that I like to do. And even with the raid changes, I still like to do it because it's still the best staging ground for a roster where you can very quickly, especially these days, very quickly prepare a lot of squads. And what usually happens with a lot of my squads, like my Zori squad, for instance, my opponents see a full Gear 11 Finn Zori squad, think it's trash, and I get a cheap hold. I get a lot of cheap holds out of a lot of my squads.
And I just want to jump in and say, guys, to avoid these cheap losses, check mods. I always forget to do it, but if you see these teams, check the mods, because if they have a crazy fast character on their team, for example, Hero Finn, you're going to have a bad time. Now, we've been kind of talking about the raid a little bit. I want to jump in and say the raid, it's been out for a couple of weeks now, and I wanted to kind of talk about how it's kind of benefiting me in ways that may not seem obvious. What it's actually doing is it's forcing me to finish certain farms. So, for example, my Canderous is not Relic. I have a Maul team all at Relic, but without Canderous. And all of a sudden I have a reason to do it. Before it was like, he still works at Gear 12. Do I really need him at Relic? And now it's like, okay, I have to do this. That's a great change for me. The other thing is like, you know, just bumping up Huck Cartel is something I'm working on. I think there's some benefits. I think this is more of an end game benefit, really. It's not something that lower game people are going to be worrying about. But it's just something to remember, and I thought it was worth mentioning.
I've had the same experience with like Embo.
Yeah.
Like statistically, I knew Embo was the better character, but Boba Fett was good enough. Did I really want to go out of my way for it? But for the raid, that was enough of a motivation for me to fill in that hole.
And Embo is fantastic, by the way.
Yeah.
Which is actually a good point. Today I thought it would be good to talk a little bit about Jabba, because we both have Jabba, right?
Yes.
Now, I kind of want to talk to people a little bit about the optimal team for Jabba. Not necessarily for the raid, but for general gameplay. So, what you'll normally find is people will normally run Jabba, Embo, Bushlayer, Chrysanthemum, and Skiff Lando. That is the traditional team, right? It is probably the best team, but there are actually a couple of characters you can slot in that 5th spot instead of Embo if you want to mix it up. Because I'm sure you're aware, like, the more you mix it up with the small tweaks you make will give you the bigger advantage in Grand Arena. And this comes from someone in my guild, really, really good player, and we was playing some GSC a couple weeks ago, and they basically said some weeks they'll change nothing except their back wall, because it gives your opponent the idea that they know what's there, they use their counters to get to the back wall, they lose. It's all about mind games, tricks. So the actual characters which I would suggest, and I want to hear your take on this as well afterwards, as the 5th in a Jabba team is either Gamorrean Guard. He's a little bit higher investment, but he throws off certain counters more than Embo would, having an extra tank. It's a little bit similar, if you remember, to the SLKR double tank meta a couple years ago. Yeah. Sometimes you go with that, sometimes you go without. But do you know who I'm going to be working on for the crate raid, who I'm going to be slotting with my Jabba team? It's actually going to be Cad Bane. Now this one may surprise you, but it's all because of his payout, and his mastery. Now he has the same mastery as JTR, which is evasion, which you can kind of guess where this is going from. But the money is made from his payout. Whenever he gets his payout, he gains an additional 25% evasion on top of his starting evasion, which is really high. And whenever he evades, he's going to be inflicting thermal detonators, which is really, really interesting. Now, obviously, is he the best character? Probably not, although his ship's very good. But I'm gonna take him up to R8, I think, for the raid within the next couple of months. Because I feel like he could really, in not so much in territory where you would never run anyone other than Embo, but in GAC, I think if you put Cad Bane there 1 or 2 times and people didn't see it coming, that could be pretty nasty.
Yeah, and it's helping out a fleet.
Yeah.
And in the raid, I have been using Cad Bane a lot just because his stun has been a little bit more reliable for me. It's just less RNG on a run.
100%. So on the raid, I've been taking Skiff Lando out and putting Cad Bane in currently. And that's been doing pretty good for me, because it is the stun, you know, it's really useful. So do you have anything to add for Jabba teams here?
Not for Jabba teams, other than what we've already stated, but there's a lot of flexibility on those comps. There is some statistical drop-offs, but the way that I feel about a lot of these top-tier teams, like a Jabba, even like your Lord Vader, even the Melgas that we talked about, I don't necessarily mind that my opponent counters them, because especially for where I'm at or where a lot of players are at, I expect some of those teams to get countered.
Yeah.
And my expectation is having them there is just drawing certain counters away. So I'm just trying to strategize the chess match of, okay, you're gonna lose one GL up against this squad, lose another GL up against this squad. Where is my opponent gonna lie after that? And the big thing that I've got to do, because I've got fewer GLs than my opponents all the time, is like I've doubled and tripled down on Datacrons.
Yeah.
Because that's something that, like, I can throw time at the game. I'm not going to be throwing money at the game.
And I think he hit the nail on the head there. If you want to do good in Grand Arena, Datacrons. It doesn't matter what level you are. Even if you're like 3 million GP and you have one relic team, Datacrons Even if you're 2 million GP and you have Wampa, you have Savage, you have Nest, you have one of these 3 characters, Datacrons. It's something I always say, and you guys need to remember, and Still Plays has kind of said it as well. Datacrons. It's one word, remember it.
I even have my Relic 5 Sana Staros. I have the level 9 Datacron for Sana. I set it in 3v3, and sometimes my opponents don't notice, and they throw something way too strong up against it. Because the Datacron, I can't use it, but it looks scary. It looks like it's there, but I just don't have the excess resources where a temporary investment like that, well, at least before, maybe the math has changed now where I'll push for some of these things, but when I have to make a choice of do I strengthen my Starkiller squad or strengthen my Sana squad, it's an easy choice, or strengthen Jabba for the raid, or strengthen as a team for a Datacron. Like, yeah, I won't make that choice, but what I will do is make sure every team that can have a Datacron has a Datacron.
Yeah.
And that's like the minimum. And way too often do I go into a grand arena and just, I don't see any Datacron set on defense. And that makes my life a whole lot easier.
Exactly. Seriously, like, I know a lot of people don't want to farm them, but even if you just farm the Datacron to level 6, even if you just go to level 6, get some basic stats, that's just what you should be doing. Like, seriously.
A lot of it is, and it's a lot easier to do it on BlueStacks, but I'll just throw in a team hit auto and walk away.
Yeah.
And I'll come back and just, I can just let that do its thing over time.
So, just on the topic of Datacron farming, if you are someone who maybe doesn't have the teams to be able to just go away at that, the 4th node or whatever it is, the Tuscan node for the level mats for Datacrons, whatever they're called, you can actually just run a Seer team. Low gear. I've been running like gear 10 Seer. Cal's been Relic, but it doesn't matter. I've also had Crew in there. Crew was at Relic. And literally all you do, you just put them in hit auto, and whatever the stamina is, as long as you have debuff related data disk, you'll win. And it's just so easy to farm them.
I think one of the underlying themes of this video is, as we approach these topics of Datacrons, characters, how they overlap into the raids or Grand Arena, how we're each individually preparing for this season of 5v5, is looking for where our weaknesses are and those kinds of small adjustments that we can be making. 'Cause one of the things that I was thinking of as we talked about, like Melgus, and some of these things happen a little bit more in the 3v3 context, or with like Lord Vader, where the Maul comps are significantly harder, or Embo in 5v5 with Jabba gives a little boost there, or we can switch in characters. Or one of the things I've noticed with Melgus is if Bastille Fallen and Darth Revan are on the squad, significantly harder for my gas to counter. Sometimes that's when a cleanup might happen.
Yep.
The versions when they don't show up, I pretty consistently clean those, beat those in a single attempt. And looking for those moments, take a look at your Grand Arena history and understand which teams aren't getting holds that maybe you feel like they should be getting holds, which teams are constantly falling to something weak, and looking for those opportunities to slowly make improvements, because there's Omicrons that we can be adding, Datacrons that we can be adding. There's just all these incremental improvements that we can be making here and there that add up into making our rosters a lot stronger overall. Yep. Like, I still want to be adding the Zori Omicron. Like, that's one I don't have. The team's pretty solid without it, but it's going to definitely boost it. And looking at a number of these new Omicrons on some of these new characters as we move into 5v5.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Because if you don't look at the data, you don't have to do it every season. You could maybe do it once every other season. It doesn't have to be all the time. But just look through. Because in the end, there is no point setting a team that has been beaten by an easy counter 10 out of 10 times. Because you might as well set nothing at that point. So I think it's really good that you bring up the point that, to prepare, look at the data, look at what people are using. It may even mean just using one different character lineup or changing one character's mods, and all of a sudden they perform much better. But make sure you go out there and look up that information.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thank you everyone for watching this episode of GACHAT.
Thank you, everyone.
It's been fun. Hopefully you guys look forward to the next episode, and maybe we change your mind a little bit on Lord Vader today. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments and we'll answer them in the next video.